coronavirus cases in the U.S. topping 1 million this week. And in Alaska, the state has the fewest number of cases in the nation, with just 355. Now, the pandemic has taken a big economic toll, though, on the state of Alaska, as the state's residents face high unemployment. So for more on that, we want to bring in Alaska Governor Mike Dunleavy. And we're also joined by Yahoo Finance's Sibile Marcellus for this conversation. And Governor, thanks so much for taking the time this afternoon to join us here on Yahoo Finance. I want to start with scaling back the coronavirus restrictions. So Alaska reopening its restaurants, salons, and retail stores last Friday, and you called this phase one. Just talk to me about why you thought it was the right decision to reopen parts of your economy at this time and how that reopening process is going so far.
We have some of the lowest numbers in the country across the board. We also test at least the top 10 of all states. And our economy is taking a beating. We knew this was going to be two catastrophes. One was potentially the health catastrophe, the pandemic itself, but then we knew the fallout was going to be economic. And the economic catastrophe is absolutely unfolding. We topped, I think, 60,000 new applications for unemployment insurance here a week ago. We have a private workforce of about 245,000 individuals in the private workforce, so that's significant. Our oil sector is getting hammered. Our tourism sector is getting hammered. Fishing, we hope to have a pretty good fishing season. We have the largest fishing fleet in the country. So across the board, we're taking a beating. But again, health comes first. So the reason we're opening up, again, is our numbers don't justify us staying closed. In other words, we're looking at our metrics. And yesterday, for example, we had 0 cases. On Friday, we had 0 cases. And so we believe that it's time to get the economy going, but watching our numbers, making sure that our numbers don't spike and that we have the ICU bed count available in case we have to have folks go in the hospital.
Governor, you were one of the first to take the lead nationally by reopening your economy last week. What is your assessment of President Trump's job? Do you believe that he's really put the full resources of the federal government at your disposal in this crisis?
Well, when we talk with the White House, we do often, when we talk with the President, Vice President Pence, which we do often, we believe that they're giving us the help that we need through FEMA and the Army Corps of Engineers. The Army Corps of Engineers has helped set up a hospital in one of our arenas, just in case there's a need for that and spillover. FEMA, we are in constant contact with them and getting supplies. So we, nobody has written the playbook on a pandemic here in 2020, obviously, or we wouldn't be in this position. But I would say that when we have a conversation with the White House, we have a conversation with the Vice President, they're pretty responsive.
Governor Dunleavy, Yahoo Finance was talking to New Jersey Governor Murphy yesterday, and on Yahoo Finance, he was saying that the state needs direct federal cash assistance. Is Alaska in the same situation, or could you see your state potentially being in that situation in the short term?
Are you referring to a direct assistance to the government itself and like the municipalities?
Yes.
Yeah, well, we could sure use that because the impacts are across the board. I mean, they're very wide and very deep. And so when it comes to the state government being able to perform its functions, when you have oil that as a direct result of the coronavirus and the Saudi-Russian oil war, when you have our cruise ship industry decimated because of the coronavirus, our fishing industry is, we're hoping to get it up in the air, or get it going, I should say, but it could be up in the air if we can't get things going there. So long story short is our municipalities and the state could definitely use that money to get us through this period of time. This is not a result of bad planning or bad business model. This is a result of the state, its governments shutting down the economy. When you shut down the economy because of a pandemic, you don't get the revenue to support your government. So we run the risk of laying off police and firemen and teachers, et cetera. So we do believe we should be allowed to use this money in a more flexible manner. It's going to help a lot if we can.
But Governor, at the beginning of this year, Alaska had a $1.55 billion budget gap. And I understand that as a part of the CARES Act, you received $1.25 billion. So do you need more? And what are your thoughts on Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, a fellow Republican, saying that states that had issues before the coronavirus pandemic should just go bankrupt?
Yeah. So I'm not saying we need more. I'm saying we need more flexibility with what we have. I think when you have any grant program coming from the federal government, if there's more flexibility, you can put that money to better use. So I would say we just need the flexibility to do that. So we're not necessarily asking for more, just the flexibility. And in terms of going bankrupt, that's a whole new concept, I think, for the states. And we can only imagine what that would look like and how that would pan out. So that's going to be an interesting conversation if that goes anywhere.
Governor Dunleavy, I want to switch gears here a little bit and just talk about the testing issue in the state of Alaska. Now, I know Alaska is focused on robust testing. Where do you stand on the number of tests that you have? And are you getting enough help? Is the state of Alaska getting enough assistance on the testing front?
So we have over 20,000 tested already in the state of Alaska. Keep in mind, we have a population of 730,000. So we're ramping up our testing. We're producing the swabs here in the state of Alaska. And there's a reason for this. Alaska being detached from the rest of the country, thousands of miles away, and a state that is prone to natural disasters, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, fires, floods, you name it. Alaska has just developed this mentality that we're going to do things on our own. We'll ask for help when we need to do so, but we'll generally do things on our own. So we're producing our own swabs. We're producing a little bit of the reagent for the tests. And we're working on getting the vials. We got a large shipment of PPE into the state last night. And again, when we ask FEMA for help, they're helping us. When we ask the Army Corps of Engineers for help, they're helping us. So we're getting the help we need. There's never enough. I think any and all states and businesses would say there's not enough during this time. But we're doing pretty good. Our numbers are doing pretty good. I think we're heading in the right direction. We'll see how this goes, this reopening over the next 2 weeks.
So I want to talk about unemployment. So we've seen that surge. 30 million nationwide have filed for unemployment over 6 weeks. What about the tourism industry in Alaska? I know that a lot of major cruise lines have actually canceled sailing to Alaska. What impact will that have on your state's economy?
Yeah, it's going to be brutal. We are a cruise ship destination here in Alaska, and we had about 2.2 million visitors last year, brings it over $200 million into the state of Alaska in terms of revenue, and well over $1 billion economic activity, even more. So it's going to be brutal on our local communities. It's going to be brutal on the state and our seasonal workers. And so we're hoping to mitigate that to some degree with some of the funding that's coming in from the federal government in order to mitigate the fall from this virus. But it's going to be tough.
And Governor, I also wanted to ask about the impact on the oil industry, what we've seen with the plunging oil prices and also demand stopping so suddenly with all the businesses being shut down. How is that also impacting your economy? And what is your plan?
It's tough. It's tough. So we have ANS, Alaska North Slope Crude. We ship down to the West Coast, and as you probably heard, there's several tankers off of Long Beach right now. They can't unload because there's not enough capacity to unload that oil, and so as a result, our ANS crude is below $10 a barrel, and if that holds, that is going to be tough on the economy. There's no doubt about it. If that were to hold, we'd have to look at downsizing the government considerably. We're fortunate that we have saved some of that money in a permanent fund. But even drawing upon that permanent fund, it's going to be difficult to support the government at the size that we have now. And so it's going to be tough. We're hoping that this is temporary, which it probably will be. And we're hoping that as we go into the summer and the fall, that we see a increase in oil prices. But nonetheless, it's not good right now.
Hey, Governor Dunleavy, I just want to ask you one more question in relation to coronavirus, and that's about contact tracing. Now, we heard Governor Cuomo say today that it's key to monitoring and controlling the coronavirus infection rate. And I know the number of cases in Alaska, obviously, is extremely different than the situation in New York State at the moment. But what are your thoughts on contact tracing? Do you think it's a good idea? And do you think this is something that your state of Alaska should be discussing at this point?
Yeah, no, we are. And we are going through contact tracing. We've been doing this for some time. We got a pretty good health team up here, epidemiologist, our state medical doc there. We got a good crew. So we've been doing this for some time. When we first got our first case, which was a pilot on an international cargo flight, landed in Anchorage, Alaska, knew he was sick and volunteered that and tested positive. But ever since then, we've been doing the contact tracing. We are tracking and we're ramping up our testing. So it does help. It does give us an idea if this is community spread, or if it's coming in from outside. We, again, being detached from the rest of the country, we instituted early on a travel restriction on if you're going to come to Alaska, you're going to have to 14-day quarantine. So that's cut down on the recreational travel to Alaska, which I think is helping with our cases and keeping our case load low.
Governor Dunleavy, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us this afternoon. We wish you all the best. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you very much. Have a good day.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.